Welcome to Keep Going, a podcast about failure and success, hosted by John Biggs. Every week, we talk to an amazing person about a time they failed and what they learned. And remember, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Welcome back to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. I'm John Biggs. Today on the show, we have Nelly Mendoza. She's the founder of Nelly Creative Studios. You're a jewelry maker, Nelly. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you've been doing this for 10 years. I think
10+ years now. Yeah.
you're the first person I've talked to who is actually making like jewelry or some kind of like or accessories, etc. So this is a new one for me. So why don't you just tell me about the business and how you started?
Yeah. So I started in college kind of by accident. Just enjoyed making jewelry. Just walked into a class one day into like the basement of the art center and then started making jewelry that way. And then I was an econ major, kind of went back and forth in terms of careers, but the one consistent thing was always jewelry. And then once it was time to pick a career, last semester or last quarter of school, I decided to try jewelry. So I started that way. At first, I wasn't sure what it would look like and how the future would pan out. But as time continued, I kind of figured things out a little bit more.
So what was the driving force behind this decision? I mean, you had an economics degree, and making jewelry is, I suspect, a fairly difficult thing because it's fashion based and it's I can't imagine that it's cheap to get started.
No, it's not cheap for sure. You have to be creative in terms of, I never got any external funding just because I know what that means. It's like giving up control of who you are and the type of work you're working on. So the only funding I got was a few fellowships, like post-graduation. I got like $5,000 to just buy materials. So I just bought gold and a few other things. And then I was kind of set up in terms of a studio space. I used the space in the college for a bit. And then that was my first kind of funding. And then after that, I continued to self-fund whatever projects I would get. I would just kind of put back into my work. So I would just go back into buying gold or materials or equipment.
So tell me about the process. How do you start a jewelry business? What were some of the things that you faced?
The reason I started was because there was really nothing else that I wanted to do. It's difficult at first. You're like, okay, I want to do this career, but how do you do it? It's not as easy as, okay, I want to work in investment banking. Let me apply for different roles, and then I'll go through these application rounds and interview rounds. It's more of, okay, you want to do this, you have a goal, but how do you get there? It's not like someone has done that already and laid a path for you. So it's a lot of trial and error in terms of how do you get to where you want to be, right? For me, it was always having control of my own work, being independent, and just making beautiful things and having people buy them as well, right?
Mm-hmm. How do you get attention as an artist in that way? I mean, obviously you need to build a fan base, you need to build folks that are repeat customers, but you also have to capture people who are just going to come off the street and say, hey, I like this. What did you do to get started?
Yeah, so I definitely made sure I had a strong presence online. So all of my socials and whatever I was putting out, very consistent. So I would always write blogs, and I have a jewelry journal just based on, okay, like this is, what the trends are happening for men. And, and I always focused on serving both men and women as opposed to just doing jewelry for women and just having that consistent product, right? So I started, my first clients were people I went to school with, and then they just kind of started telling their friends. Fortunately, jewelry is a very visual product. People see it on you and they're like, I like it. It's easy to sell in that way. So you always, I have the work that I wear, but I also, my best clients are those who wear it and kind of tell their friends. So it's a lot of word of mouth. And then how do you get it to the wider public? Last year I had my first show. So I rented out a gallery and I just invited friends of friends, and so on, and a few people who walked in, but it was a closed event, private, just kind of getting, it's like people who have kind of known me for a bit, but don't really know who I am, and letting them interact with my product, especially since I don't have a store or anything like that. Just having the physical aspect has also helped. So that's kind of like the next phase of my business, just continuing those pop-up ideas. So I have one planned for this year, for example, somewhere in Soho again, and just letting people interact with the product. And this will be for a bigger client base. First one was mostly for people I already knew. Obviously, you're dealing with jewelry. You don't want just anyone walking in. I want people to feel safe when they're in there as opposed to someone randomly walking in and being a safety thing. So I'm always careful about who I invite and making sure they're interested just to create, because I'm not just making jewelry or selling jewelry. I also want a good community of people who enjoy my work or who enjoy the arts. And as opposed to just, it's just something I sell.
Was there ever a moment when you said, "Hey, I should probably get back into investment banking"?
That's very interesting. I would say, yes, definitely a few moments where you're just like, okay, like I'm not selling as much jewelry. I just, and the creative career is so interesting because it's very lonely. You go through these moments where you're just walking a path and you're like, is this the right path? Or is it time for me to turn around? I would say once I was past those dark moments of doubt, I was like, all right, I just have to keep going and things, you have to build slowly. And for me, like the reason I didn't go into one of those traditional careers starting off is because I knew I would get trapped in that safety net very early on. And it's once you're in that, it's so difficult to leave. So at least for me, it's like, all right, I had to celebrate the small wins. All right, I have a new client, I have a new project, new idea. I just have to like put all my focus on there. So for very brief amounts of time, but I think for me, I just knew this is kind of what I had to do. And if I didn't do it at a younger age, it's just as opposed to like waiting, things just get more difficult. And for jewelry, you kind of have to have mentors and you have to just kind of go out in the field and explore and figure things out.
Do you feel you were able to do it because you did have that backup of an economics degree? I mean, this is like the age-old question, right? Do you go to school for something practical and then do your art on the side, or do you kind of fall in completely? What was your thinking when you were in that position?
Having an economics degree definitely made me more confident in terms of, all right, this is how you manage money a little bit more. I think as an artist, like before college, for me, I had no idea how money worked, no idea about the stock market, like the value of money, the opportunity cost of something, right? Like if you do X as opposed to Y, what happens? So it definitely taught me to think in a very analytical way. Yes, do I regret sometimes not going into straight up just art, an art degree? Occasionally, but then I look back at the big picture and it's like, no, it's better that I have both the analytical and the artistic because then I can look at something and figure out what it should be priced at as opposed to just the emotional side of "Oh, it's just beautiful." So yes, it's an interesting question you ask, like which one came, it's like, what do you do, right? I don't think I even thought an arts degree was going to be something that would help me just when I was in school. But looking back at it, I think I would have been fine either way. But definitely the economics gave me a lot of confidence to just go into my career with full faith, if that makes sense. If everything failed, I would have that. But yeah, I would have something to fall back on.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I did a good job answering your question,
No, I
but
think well, I mean, look, I think you're honest about it. I think a lot of people would say that, no, I burned my bridges, I burned the boats, and I just decided I'm not going back. I'm not even going to follow. I'm not going to follow the idea of becoming
yeah.
not an
Yeah, I mean,
artist.
that's interesting. Yeah, for me, I just knew that it's a time sensitive thing. I think in college you have the benefit of you're still a student and people are like, "Oh, okay, like what do you want to do with your life?" And you're almost allowed to play a little bit more as opposed to what I see now with a lot of my friends are just like very fixed in their career, very serious career and so on. Yeah, I think for me, just knowing that very early on that I had that room to just play, and if you fail, it's not going to be like, oh, like, you have a mortgage, you have kids, and what are you doing with your life? So that's what I mean by time sensitive.
What would you say to someone who's starting out in this industry?
To be patient, and you can't wait for things to just come to you. You just have to kind of go for it and get it. Like for me, it's just whenever I had moments of darkness and just being like, all right, what am I doing? Just, okay, it's like, you have the talent, you have the skill, and you can't think about what you don't have. You really have to think about, okay, what are the things that I can offer? Because for me, it was like, totally self funded, like buying materials, mold, everything, just kind of figuring that out. I can be complaining of, oh, I don't have this or that, but to be in a creative career, it means figuring it out with whatever resources you have if you really want to make it work.
I mean, if you really want to make it work, what does it mean to really want to make it work? Again, is it a burning your boats kind of situation? You wanted this. I think what I'm trying to say is like when you told the story, the beginning of the story, you kind of like almost fell into the thing. Right? Kind of, you went down in the basement. You did some work in the
Yeah,
in the student art lab or whatever.
yeah, and at the Hopkins Center up in New Hampshire
Hmm.
at Dartmouth. So it's just like very random, right? Like
Yeah.
completely random. And then here we are today. So really making it work, because here's the thing, you can definitely make a living doing things that are easier. You can go and again, traditional career and not worry about, when is your next, big project? Is something going to be done right? Like if you have a big client, how are you going to make sure, like to follow through with them to deliver like the best product that you can? And it's a lot of back and forth. And I would say for other stuff, it's like, all right, you do your task and you go home. There's no such thing as like, I need to follow up with my client. I need to follow up with my stone setter. I need to follow up with this other person. It's just so many different links that, I have to work with on a daily basis, as opposed to just, I'm going to just finish, whatever I'm told and do that. And I would, I spent a few years at Tiffany. Actually, my last day was just last year. Part of the reason, I was there, I was working there in their innovation studio. So again, making it work, I was at a point
Hmm.
where I was like, all right, I have this job offer and I'm going to have some time to just kind of keep figuring things out. And this was 2 years out of school. And I was like, okay, this sounds amazing. I can learn a lot. And I took that job, not, it's like the financial security was great, but also I knew I had to go into the world and learn a little bit more, just so I had more experience and again, more confidence. I think it's all about building that creative confidence too.
So you basically you took a gig to work with Tiffany but that was to expand your line, right?
Yeah,
To
expand
your
my line,
experience.
expand my work, my experience. I spent 4 years there, but towards the end, I was like, it's time again to go back into my business full time. I'm not dedicating as much time into it as I would like. And for me, it's just, again, having that, authority of this is the work I want to be working on and these are the projects I want to be doing. I think that's what really drives me.
No, so this is I'm looking at the site now, nellycreativestudios.com.
Yeah,
It's a little rich for my blood, but I'm a watch guy, so
I know.
I'd spend a lot on.
It's yeah, I mean, it's all, with the price of materials nowadays, it's incredible how
Hmm.
much jewelry has like appreciated. I had some stuff on there that, now I can't even keep those old prices because it would just be more in the gold.
Wow.
So it's definitely appreciated. And that affects everything because again, figuring out like, okay, I still want to offer. So actually that's something that I'm working on now, just offering more affordable work as an entry point for people. Because I have a lot of younger followers who don't necessarily have the budget to afford a solid gold or a solid platinum bracelet. So are offering alternating materials that haven't been as popular aren't as popular yet, and you're kind of the first mover that makes sense in making it popular and offering something different. I think, yeah.
What do you want to say to somebody who is just discovering your work? Why should they pick up one of your pieces versus somebody else's? Like, I don't know, go down to Tiffany, right?
Because it's always going to go out and or go up in value in terms of, it's like as I've gotten, more experience and exposure, my work has only gained popularity. So something I see a lot now is a lot of, brands who just kind of make stuff trendy. And they're like, all right, this is trendy for now. It's kind of following a similar path as like that, like fashion. And hate to say this, but fast fashion in a way of like make something that's trendy and then it's not going to hold that beauty or value in the long term. So for me, it's like making stuff that you can have and be proud of for 20, 20 years from now, like something you can give to your kids or your grandkids. And with Tiffany, their stuff is, their bread and butter. You have the designs very consistent, but you can get that any other time, right? It's not something that you can only get once in a lifetime. For a lot of my clients, I do, especially when I do like a one of one piece, it's something that they treasure and they keep and they wear almost like a piece of artwork that they're wearing.
Fascinating. All right. So we're going to send folks over to Nelly Creative Studio. Everybody's going to buy all your jewelry and you're going to have to make some more.
Yes.
So that might be a nice problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. And, the nice thing, about having that Tiffany experience now, I just have so many people on my court in terms of the skills they offer, and I didn't have that before, like coming from a liberal arts school. You don't really have those connections. So I would say like spending those 2 years at Tiffany is almost like my second degree. And you were talking about an art degree. Like I would consider that kind of like my art degree in a way.
Yeah, very cool. Nelly Mendoza, Nelly Creative Studios. Go check it out and tell us what they especially liked. I like the angel. I like the angel pendant.
The angel, yes.
Yeah.
Those are.
I like that. It's like degraded sort of, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I just for my show I had a few different pendants with granulation with the 22 karat, and it was based on the gods.
Mm-hmm.
The theme of my show is Ambrosia, who does the gods. So I had those pendants. It's like Aphrodite, and then Apollo, and then Hermes, and then a few other gods. But those are always fun to me. Those do very well for men as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should become a jewelry guy. I never became a jewelry guy.
Yeah, no, I mean the path, the line between like watches are jewelry for men, and hopefully in the next few years I'll get to design more watches. That's definitely a goal of mine.
All right, very cool.
Yeah, one of one would be really fun.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Nelly. This has been fascinating.
Thank you. Hopefully I answered all your questions.
No, I think you did.
Thank you.
This has been Keep Going. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. Remember, Keep Going is entirely listener supported. If you're listening to this, please head over to keepgoingpod.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast for as little as $5 a month. This is a labor of love, and every little bit helps. Thanks for listening.